Hi, and welcome to this lecture on cell communication. The first kind of cell communication I would like to talk to you about is what is called direct contact. Let's apply this idea of direct contact first to immune system cells. The first idea is that it is very important that cells have this type of communication called direct contact, and that is where they actually touch other cells. And because of this touch or this interaction at their cell membrane, they can communicate with each other. Immune system cells use it to help destroy unhealthy and foreign cells. It allows the immune system cells to communicate with the body cells through contact. Now, please keep in mind that your immune system cells are often wandering through the body, such as neutrophils and macrophages, and as they come into contact with these body cells, it helps them to identify those cells as being part of you or foreign. This ability is gained by looking at the cell's glycocalyx. Now, the glycocalyx is a coating of carbohydrates on the external surface of the cell, and it is very unique to those cells. You can almost think of the glycocalyx as having its own code, and these cells can read that code and then make sure that it belongs to them. And if it is not part of that host body, let's say, then it is destroyed. The unhealthy and foreign cells will have a different glycocalyx pattern, i.e. a different code, let's say, and then they are subsequently destroyed. Another example would be sperm and egg cells. The egg has a very unique glycocalyx, and this code in the glycocalyx, the arrangement and combination of different kinds of organic molecules allows for the recognition of the egg by the sperm during fertilization. Did you ever wonder how the sperm doesn't try to fertilize every other cell within the body? That is because of this glycocalyx. It helps the sperm recognize the egg as the thing that it wants to fertilize. A third example would be cellular regrowth following injury. Whenever tissue is damaged, it leaves a space, and because of this lack of direct contact, it helps stimulate the cells around it to grow. Well, as those cells come into contact with the cells around them, that lets those growing cells know that there is enough there to fill the hole or to replace the cells missing from the injury, so it stops themselves from growing. Now, a second kind of cell communication is termed ligand-receptor signaling, and in fact most cell communication occurs through this process. Keep in mind that a ligand is a general term given to any molecule that is used to stimulate a receptor. The idea in ligand receptor signaling is that molecules are released from one cell and it will cross the ECF, or the extracellular fluid, and bind to the receptor within the plasma membrane of another cell. Examples of this would be things such as neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are released from nerve cells, and they can then cross and stimulate the receptors on the plasma membrane of another cell. Another example would be hormones that are secreted from endocrine cells. These hormones can travel either locally or even body-wide and stimulate only the cells that have those receptors. Now, this idea of ligand receptor signaling is very important for controlling things such as growth, reproduction, and cellular processes. For example, using the hormone idea, we have human growth hormone that is released in the body to help our body cells grow and to help overall growth of the individual. Well, that human growth hormone only affects certain cells, and those are the cells that have the receptors for that hormone. Now, there are three types of receptors that bind these ligands. The first one is the channel-linked receptors. The second is enzymatic receptors. And the fourth is the G protein coupled receptors, which is also called the second messenger system. Here is the example of a channel-linked receptor. And the idea is that it allows the ion passage into or out of cells. Here are your ions labeled, and here is the ligand. And the ligand will bind to the channel, and as it binds to the channel, you can see that here, it opens this passageway, and then the ions can move into the channel and then into the ICF, which is the intracellular fluid. Now keep in mind, this is the ECF, which means extracellular fluid. Now these are often used to help initiate electrical changes in the muscle and nerve cells. The second kind is the enzymatic receptors. An example here would be the protein kinase enzymes. Now, a kinase enzyme is an enzyme in which it will phosphorylate or add a phosphate group to another organic molecule, usually proteins. Now, this helps provide a mechanism for altering enzymatic activity or changing how these enzymes will function. And here is the example shown within. Here is your ligand, and it is going to bind to this receptor. This is your receptor here, and on the other side of the receptor we have an inactive protein kinase enzyme. Well, as this ligand binds, you can see it binding. It will help to phosphorylate this enzyme, and because of this phosphate group, it will either turn this enzyme on or off, and then that enzyme can do what it needs to do within the cell. Finally, we have the G protein coupled receptors, and this is a fairly complex pathway that will indirectly activate protein kinase enzymes. This is often called the second messenger system. And it's called the second messenger system because we have the ligand that acts as the first messenger, and then after it activates the receptor within the plasma membrane, it will cause a second messenger to be formed. But let's go through the process so that we can understand how that happens. Now first, we have our ligand here that will bind to your receptor. Now, this receptor already has a G protein bound to it. Alright? And it will then become activated by a chemical, in this case GTP. Once it becomes activated, it leaves the receptor, and it will attach to, as you can see here, an effector protein. Alright, now in this case, here is two different effector proteins. We have the ion channel, and we have the enzyme. And the ion channel allows the ions into the cell that will work on the effector protein. And between the two of them will make the second messenger. And then this second messenger here can go and activate the kinase enzyme we see here. Now this kinase enzyme is produced by the cell in its inactive form, and it's only activated when the second messenger is introduced. So it is always ready to do its job. Now the active protein kinase enzyme can phosphorylate a lot of different other enzymes within the cell, which you see here. And this is very important for something that is called the cascade effect, where the body can release one chemical and it will have a huge impact within cells. That is, it will cause the creation of a lot of different enzymes and cause a lot of different effects within the cell and hence the body.